Started mine a short way ago.
All right, cool. Yeah, and we're rolling now. So, yeah, and if people are striving to be famous, they're striving for something prepackaged, and that's where I see it as like a very small goal to have, right? Because to be an idol, to be the famous celebrity, you're essentially, on one hand, you're like the demigod, you're the modern mythology, but on the other side of that, you're completely packaged into something, into an image of something that you then need to stay within that box, basically, or you're no longer that character, you're no longer that brand anymore. And so fame is like this, the smallest box you could put yourself in is to become famous, because then that's the expectation of yourself you've created for people. You have to live up to that now. You can't change. Yeah, so it's kind of like that. Don't
Yeah,
strive towards that. Yeah, I strive to like supersede myself every day. So like when I put work out, man, I'm almost ashamed of everything I've made. Not because it's bad, but because I've just like, I look at it like, oh man, I've just, now that it's gotten out of my system, I've like divorced from it in a way. Like it's my aborted baby. I'm not looking at that baby with much pride anymore, because it's like no longer a part of me. I don't know.
I have that same. I have that same issue with my. It's almost like you did it. Now you want to focus on something else. Looking back at what you've done doesn't really benefit you.
Yeah.
Except maybe to see where your errors. When you look back on it, that's what a lot of writers talk about. And when they look back in their work, I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I wrote that shitty book. It got me famous, but I'm
Right.
embarrassed. I'm embarrassed of what a jackass I was.
Yeah.
It's funny the stuff that catches on with people though. It's like if you do want to have an audience, well, you've got to catch on with some people in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
And it's so ironic that the things that you think that will catch on don't often, and the things that do are the ones that you're like, eh. And I hear that all the time with creators, like let's say it was a poem or a song or something. It was like it was the least one on the album, and that's the one that did it for him for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah, the one that required the least amount of creative genius. It was like the simplest, most basic thing or whatever, and it's like everyone loved it. Yeah, man.
So yeah, I mean, but you've
That's
got to have that sort of sense of, I'm sure you got to have a sense of self worth and some ego, just in order, even that not being famous or anything, just in order to be able to command sort of a level of respect from people that you're around and working with, bosses and whoever, all the things that you got to deal with in life. And it helps to have that because when you project that somewhat, it works. It will, people will not behave quite as casually, disdainfully as they might if you don't
Mm,
project some ego. You project some ego,
yeah.
it makes people like, oh, it makes them take like, oh wow, who am I dealing with? What am I dealing with? Type of an attitude versus, oh, this is just a subordinate. I can now flex my ego over top of them. Can't let people do that shit. You can't let them. That's my opinion.
Mm.
I mean, they need.
Well,
I feel like people
yeah.
who become abusive in that way have to be taught. So who else but you to teach them? It doesn't mean you
Well,
have to
that's
hurt
true.
them or destroy them. It just means you have to psychologically sort of handle that to some degree. That's my perspective
Like,
on it.
yeah,
Because I see
yeah.
usually
On
what
that,
happens is it happens when they're bullying someone else. If you see them bullying someone, I can't tolerate that personally. So that's when I'll usually activate from no ego to suddenly the ego rears up and it's like a different person, you know.
Yeah,
It's not.
yeah.
It's not who I want to be, really. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
You have become something you don't really want to be, but you're dealing with assholes. When that happens, what do? What do you do, Harry? What do you do?
Yeah,
How
I
do you
play a
deal with
different
it?
game.
Tell me
I
about it.
don't. I'll just. So on that, I'll just put my incense out because it's smoking up real smoky in here now. Got frankincense burning. So I've tried multiple things, but for the last year or so, I've tried a different method, and it's not helping me in any way, but it's certainly revealing to me the nature of what you're talking about here. Because when you give them something, you're providing a little bit of order for them to create an idol of you or an idol of the situation that they can then either rest in or attack. But there's an alternative thing. Like I've been practicing silence for the last 12 months. Silence, not just verbal silence, but mental silence. And with that, you don't really talk like when you're having conversation with people. That requires mental activity, right? So when you're practicing silence, you're actually not giving them anything. And so we've got two sides of that situation. One's where you're providing them an image or some information for them to create order and build something in their mind, or you're giving them nothing, right? And that means there's a total state of chaos. And the only way they can try to order that chaos is inside their own mind. Now, when that's happening, they ended up in a war inside their own mind, essentially. So they might then project, as you mentioned, that people are going to project, but it's not you who they're projecting towards. It's within their own void or chaos that they're spinning their own wheels. And so which one's more effective, when you provide order for them or when you provide chaos? Which one are they learning more from? And so what I've noticed is that when you're not providing anything, when you're silent, all the energy goes into filling that void, but you've given them nothing to actually build from. So all they have is their own structures in their mind.
Yeah.
Now that leads to a destabilization of that person.
Makes sense.
But it also becomes a teaching tool for them, because there's a war going on that doesn't involve you, but you are the target of their projections. And so because their projection of you is only in their mind, you're not in the war, but you're the target of the war. And so that vacuum or chaos is probably a better teaching tool than me giving them the order.
Sure.
Because when I give them the order, when I tell them how things are, I'm just the one crafting the idol in their mind for them. They're not learning anything.
Well,
in a way.
let me inject something, because normally I guess, I grew up around violence. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your situation was, but I grew up where there was a lot of violence, and I learned at a young age not to interject, not to interject at risk of risk of violence toward myself. So most of the time, I never interject, and in those days, I didn't. I learned early, you know. But the point I guess, where I was thinking of is lately there's been so much social conflict going on over here, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of strange altercations happening. And if I see in many cases people who are not showing any signs of ego at all, where you say riders on a train or something, public transit, or people who are just trying to stay out of it, remaining silent. No, of course, I can't say what's going on in their minds, but just keeping silent and staying out of things, staying back and being aloof to some degree when there's action happening around us that might, in many cases, needs men to stand up and say, "Hey, no, that's enough. That's it. You're not doing any of that around here." And if we don't do that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how far these people will go, because a lot of the times I'm seeing it and they just seem so abusive. There's a lot of people that are mental, and they will
Hmm.
push things just exactly as far as they can. Then, if they see a police officer, they see an authority figure, then maybe they stop. Well, it's the same thing when they look around when they're reading the room. If they don't see anybody who shows any sign of being willing to step forward or whatever, this gives them the freedom to do whatever. You know what I'm saying? This is like, oh,
Hmm.
this is my playground. I can do
Well, it's
whatever I
not
want.
freedom.
So,
It's not freedom, though, right? Like it's actually chaos.
of course, yeah, but I'm just meaning to say that that's my particular take at the moment. I don't think I could just stay out of it and
Right. Yeah. No. No.
hopefully
I get it.
create warfare internal with them. I would need to. I don't know. Maybe I'm just projecting some of my current experiences, but I mean, the majority of the time, you don't need to interact with any of those kind of situations. It's only on a rare occasion when something like this occurs. And in those occasions, I guess I want to be ready, so I can do my
Yeah.
bit for civility, because we need to stand up for civility. And it's not something we can wait for police or everybody else to come around and do for us, because it's not going to happen. A lot of times those guys are jackasses too. So you can't win. You don't know the guy. If you try to do something to help, you don't know whether or not you might end up getting arrested, and the perpetrator walks free. So you make a good
Yeah.
point that it's not really beneficial to even play the games with these people. But since I see women and children and other people that are being taken advantage or hurt sometimes, or even just weaker people who are trying to stay polite and quiet, I don't have any patience for that anymore. I'm really fed up quite a bit right now with that. So my feeling is that I'd like to see most men agree that we're not going to allow that to take place. And when that shit happens, we are going to stop it. If I have to take the blade of a knife in the process or whatever, okay, it's better than standing and watching. That's for sure.
Right. Right.
In those
Yeah.
situations,
Um.
we're on a slightly
Yeah.
different wavelength at the moment. I can tell, but so I don't mean to,
No.
where you're at is where
Yeah.
I'd much rather be. I'd much rather be where you're at. Okay,
Yeah.
just to make that clear.
Yeah. So I see where you come from as well, because you're probably dealing with a lot more tension over there than my life is pretty pretty stable, and I don't see a lot of people. I don't hang out with society, so I can't really comment a lot. But like I definitely understand that there's people living with chaos, and those people who you're referring to, bringing a bit of order or whatever to like bring the appearance of order at least, right? Because underneath the waters, underneath the surface of the waters, as soon as the external authority is removed, the chaos comes back into action again. And so where I see the solution, the only solution is a permanent solution, and that permanent solution doesn't come from someone else. And so if, for example, the chaos is in someone else and you're trying to bring that order, you're the external force coming in to try to order someone else's chaos. As soon as you're out of the picture, that chaos is still remaining.
Of
So
course.
that's not a solution. It's like a Band-Aid.
Right.
The,
I agree.
the solution for their chaos is going to come through them learning about how their own chaos is looping them into destruction. And the way I see that happening is when they loop and loop and loop and loop and loop and loop and loop, one of these loops, they're going to realize what's going on and understand that it's an internal process, not an external process.
It's true, but it's funny because you say that, because I was about to say my methods never really work. They only work for when I'm present. If I'm there,
yeah,
that's the only time it's going to work. If then, you know what I mean? But it just brought back to mind several. I used to deal with lots of public interactions, and therefore lots of altercations. And because of that sheer volume of altercations in so many instances where people hated me, or they thought they hated me, or whatever reason during that period of time, but later, sometimes I got, which it felt like, okay, I was somewhat justified. Later on, I had some of these people come back, maybe even years later, encounter them somewhere, people that I'd had altercations with, but I told them what I didn't. I never tried to do anything to hurt anybody, but I just told them, and I tried to tell them the truth, but not nicely, not necessarily
yeah.
nicely. After a while, you lose patience. But what I want to say is that some of them came back later and thanked me. So it wasn't many, maybe two, three
Yeah.
people over the years that I can think of offhand right now that came back and said, "Hey, man, thank you. You were right. I'm sorry I did that. I'm sorry I behaved like that. I was dead wrong." But they didn't realize it at the time. They didn't necessarily change their behavior at the time. It was the downward spiral that they were in that I was speaking to it. You know what I mean? I was speaking to that. I was speaking to the self destructive pattern that they were trapped in, and saying,
Yeah, definitely.
this is what's going to happen. You're going down the wrong path. You're going down a road that's going to land you, it's going to land you behind bars. It's going to land you, it's going to destroy your credit. It's going to land, all these things are bad, negative consequences of what you're doing. And later they found out, and they learned their lesson, and all of a sudden they came back as new, sort of like reformed people. I had that happen in the military. I had that happen in various job functions where I had to be an asshole. I don't want to have to do that job, but somebody had to do it. So in those cases, I felt like, wow, okay, there is some justification for laying down the rules on people, because some people never got that. Some people have been indulged to an inordinate degree and have allowed their sense of self to get so inflated and delusional to the point that, you never know what you're going to see. But they're all over the place, and in jails and places like that, of course, they're all over. Delusional people are everywhere, but we can have various types of delusions. Some of them are destructive to society. Some of them are harmless, you know?
Yeah. And what you're saying is definitely something I agree with. Like, if you're coming from a place of love, then you don't need to win, and so silence is one thing, but another thing is being able to bring up the problems in a non-confrontational way from a place of love, from a place of calm, but without an expectation. Because what you find is, even if you come in with feedback, even from a loving or compassionate position, it's like you're still going to get your head bit off anyway.
Oh yeah. If you're too
What
loving
we're
and
really,
compassionate, it also comes off as offensive. It's like
you can't win.
you can't win that game if you're. It depends on the kind of person you're dealing with, and it depends on the situation, and you can't always get it right. And so if you come
No.
loving and compassionate and you don't hit the mark and you don't stop the behavior when it's happening, you could get assaulted or something. And while you're being
Oh, you
loving and
will.
compassionate,
You will.
you know,
You will. And it's like the thing about these interactions we have is, as much as we can be a mirror for these people, what we usually won't see is that they are a mirror for our own soul.
Mm.
And that when we encounter these situations, we're dealing with our own reflection, but we project that, it's them, it's their problem. And we don't understand we're dealing with the exact shadow of our own soul at the same time. And
Now you're
that's
bringing
why
up an
they,
interesting point of view that I can resonate to that, because the idea is that the reason I can recognize that thing in the other person that I don't like is because it's in myself. Is that part of myself that I despise. And when I feel those feelings of anger and disgust for another, it's really something within me that's resonating to it. You know what I mean? A part of the self. Yeah, I can
yeah,
recognize and agree
absolutely.
with you on that, dude.
Yeah. And so I guess when we take it from that perspective, when we're trying to either solve the problem or we're trying to like reject it, when you're talking about one thing is like trying to bring order to it, and the other one's like people passively ignoring it, closing their eyes and ears to the problem.
Yeah.
Those are attempts in a way to smash the mirror. And so what we want to do instead is to be present with that mirror, to actually because if we're dealing with our own soul's reflection, then this isn't anything to do with them. The reason why it's happening in our life is got to do with us. Can we accept ourselves? And so yeah, there's a
So what would you
I
do?
guess
You want to remember to have some love for that aspect of self, even if it's ugly, type of deal. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, and coming into a bit more understanding about why these things happen in our lives is because they're still problems for us. And when they're no longer a problem, they disappear. It's like no one worries about what 2 plus 2 equals. Once you figure out it's 4, 2 plus 2 isn't a problem anymore. But unless you figured out it equals 4, it's going to keep coming up and again in a loop, in different masks, in different people and different situations. But it's ultimately about recognizing that our own self is producing these for us as a as a tutor. Like, the people who are unloving in your life are there to teach you how to love. They're not. We expect them to love us, but it's about us learning how to love them. It's the complete opposite. So
You said it perfectly with the two plus two. And when with the Magi cosmology, you have the 2 plus 2 like this. 2 Taurus. 2 plus 2 Taurus fields. So you have two couples, two divine couples that form the basis of the Magi pyramid. And at the top of the pyramid would be the God or divine, which in that framework is the divine feminine, right? God herself, the great, the this concept. Male, female, doesn't matter, but that's how the Magi, that's how I've been taught to think about it. But when you say the 2 plus 2, it really made me think of that right now with the Taurus fields there on the four corners. It's like the four, as Pythagoras famously said, the four is divine because it gave us the 10, the top of the pyramid, the base of four,
Yep.
and the top of the pyramid, which is the divine. So interesting
Yep.
that you brought that up right there.
That's my line of work at the moment. I'm still trying to unravel all that, but that's where the idea of secrecy is like a conflict for me, because when I hear about these poets and all that, these enlightened poets, they like Rumi. I don't know if you've heard much about Persian poetry, but
I love Rumi. Yeah.
Yeah, he guilt trips me, man, because he talks about this stuff being like, you got to keep, it's your secret. It's her, it's like God's secret. And so, like, when I talk about Taurus fields and stuff, it makes me feel conflicted about whether whether or not this should just be for me.
Well, that's the thing, though. A lot of it is because of monotheism, is why it all has to be secret. It's all secret all over monotheism because there's no feminine allowed, really. She's supposed to be subjected. That kind of a deal. And if they go around talking about it, they're going to get killed, That was the concept, that was alternative Christianity, which was, it wasn't really alternative. It was really the true, sort of like what we might consider the truest Christianity. Those guys were killed. And if you have Sufism, probably the most authentic part of the Islam, the parts where it was really about love and they are focused on that instead of laws, those guys were always in danger too. It's like they had to watch their ass if they want to survive. So a lot of them were like traveling lovers, like those guys that went around playing the mandolin or whatnot, going from court to court and go around and be entertainers and musicians.
Bards.
Yeah, the traveling bards, man.
Yeah, man.
The bardo of the bard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and these guys like Rumi, he's from like the 1500s, right? And if you said that you were God back then, they would kill you. Nowadays, every new age person is on YouTube saying that we're all one, we're all God, and so we're clearly in a different time, and
that's for sure.
I'm probably not going to get killed, if we're talking about this stuff. So maybe, that's what they're talking about. There's another thing is like, I didn't ask to learn about any of this stuff that I've learned about with Taurus fields or words and meanings and all that. I had no interest in etymology a year and a half ago. And now when I'm dreaming about etymology, So we're pulled towards what we need to know. And the reason for that is not known to us while we're learning it, right? But then at some point, you might stumble upon something that maybe needs to be said now. Maybe the timing's right. And the vast majority of the stuff I come across feels like it hasn't been spoken before in our history, in this current history. And it makes me think, well, am I being shown this to teach people, or am I being shown this just to understand myself? And I've been leaning towards the latter. I've just been thinking it's just for me, because I can't share the understanding with anyone anyway. And that's actually the biggest battle, is like I could share all I know and it won't get you any closer to seeing what I'm talking about. So like, what is the purpose of it? What is the purpose of trying to share it? And that's the big question. Like, maybe there is a purpose and I just can't see it, you know?
Maybe that part's not necessary to be shared. Maybe that's why it's so hard to do and or semi impossible to do anyway. I mean, if you do share, it's not going to be received, right? So I don't
Yeah.
know, but I mean, it's good to ideally you would share it, and people who do recognize it would come over, you know. Then you have someone to talk to about it, type of thing.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, totally. And that's what I think most of what the mystics of history are there for. They're not providing spoilers, they're providing signposts. And yeah, that's all I could really do for anyone else as well. But
do
the
you
stuff I'm
feel?
coming across, yeah.
Oh, I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to hear about all your. I've been listening and watching, reading some of your posts and some of your comments, and very, very spiritual, kind of like Rumi-esque, I guess you might say. So it's good that interesting you brought up Rumi, because you seem to have that sort of a purely spiritual vibe going, which is cool. I mean, that's really awesome. And so, but I was curious, do you feel loneliness because of this or in the process of all this?
Yeah, it's a weird paradox. It's a weird paradox where I'm so closely connected to the spirit, but that connection has transformed the way my mind works to the point where I'm isolated from society and the world.
Mm-hmm.
Not 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 forcefully, but like because of the way I no longer think in time. And because I don't think in time, I'm not thinking back and forward.
Hmm.
And so when it comes to building conversations with other people, they're story-based conversations. So that's isolated me, just because if I was to be connected with society, my mind would have to be moving in time all the time. And so it's isolated me in that side, but on the other side, it's lit. It's made me even closer to the spirit, in terms of like the spirit is like a love affair, and that love affair is fueled by yearning. Um, and I'm essentially using everything that I'm not to fuel that union in a way. Like, if you want to think about what the word like service means, like I'm serving my whole self on a platter. Everything I can think of, everything I can see,
Mm-hmm.
everything I can feel, handing that over on a plate.
Hmm.
And in return, that's what fuels the fire of that love, that divine love. And so, like, I don't actually claim, like, everything that I'm offering comes from the spirit already.
Hmm.
So because of that, I don't have anything to offer.
Yeah.
So normally people think they have to do this or that in order to reach some kind of salvation or liberation, right? Like, if you talk archaically, people sacrifice on an altar to a god, right? And they're trying to get something from that god.
Right.
Well, if you see that everything is God, then there's nothing you can give. If there's nothing you can give, then why are you trying to bargain for? That's what we normally try to do, is like we're trying to bargain for our own salvation, for our own connection with the Spirit.
Well, it seems to me we're trying to alter the story. We're like trying to make a deal or something to change the story to get more happiness or more of what we want. It's like this doesn't satisfy every detail of what I wanted. So, because we didn't write that story, probably, right? We want to like, some of us want to change the story. If you're on death row, you probably want to change the story if you could, of course.
Yeah,
but I mean, just in general, people always wanting more. In some cases, you see them get more. They get more than they should, and you wonder, why? Why is that? What exactly happened? Because they have nothing to offer either. It's like, I know for sure that I have nothing to offer. So to put yourself out there on a platter is about all you can. It's about all you can do. You know, it's like that. I had dreams like that where you wake up on a table, and it's like a buffet, and you're laying on the table like you're about to get served or something. You know, um, some kind of feast going on, and I've pondered on that quite a bit because it looks like the Bacchanalia or whatever, right? But yeah, I feel like I also agree with you. I have nothing to offer to God. The only times I felt love from God, the times when I felt it, was when it was very clear that I had nothing to offer or to bargain with. It was nothing like that. It was more or less you just this feeling of compassion coming from something beyond. So the forces of creation or whatnot, real or imagined, it felt real to me whenever I've experienced it. And it was when I was down and had nothing, not even the pretense of having something. You know what I mean? Decent clothes on your decent clothes to wear, a pair of shoes. Anything. You know. So.
Yeah, like on that, I see our lives that we live as a story that's been written for us by God. And a lot of people might think that's a bad thing and they want to write their own story. But the way I see it is that if your incarnated mind thinks it is greater than the intelligence of an infinite creator, right? Then do you think that limited mind is going to be able to write a better story for you than the infinite mind?
Right.
Yeah, so then
That's
we then
ludicrous.
go through this whole story. Yeah, and we go through our story and we accumulate knowledge and experiences, and we say that's ours and that we did that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we try to bargain with these things that we've accumulated, like, oh, if only I sacrifice this thing, I'll become this thing or whatever. Like, we're bargaining, but we don't understand, or we don't see that none of that story was directed by us. It's like for example, there's a heavy amount of Gnostic fear mongering going on in the world at the moment. And that's because people are waking up, I guess, to a lot of the illusion that's been running this play for a very long time. Now, what they see in the world is they see the bad actors, the Illuminati, whatever, right? Let's just call them they, because that's what everyone calls them they. So what's taking place is all the characters in the movie are looking at the other characters and they're saying those other characters run and control this whole movie. But if you're outside of the movie, right, you know the characters don't write the movie.
Right.
Who writes the movie is the scriptwriter. The scriptwriter pre-exists the movie itself. And so we're looking at the characters and saying they're the ones who made the script and they're the ones who directed the movie. All right? Completely caught in the illusion of the movie. To the point where everything that's happening in the movie is like they're accumulating it as if they have control over it. But if you know that the script writer is outside the fucking movie and it's clearly got a better perspective than the characters in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Then you can stop claiming ownership over what's going on in the movie. And if you stop doing that, then you realize there is no they. Like the they and the you are inseparable. You're all characters in this story. So everything that happens in that story to that character, you can't claim that you did it. Because it was written. It was written.
Carry on.
So that's just like the level of poverty that I've realized in my own character, that there's nothing I can say or offer or do that the script writer would need from me. The script writer doesn't need anything from the characters. The characters themselves are an expression of the script writer. And so if you understand the script writer as an infinite, unlimited being, then you can realize you are his expression. You are its expression. The only thing you can offer it is everything you think you are. And that's essentially realizing that the mind is the mind is almost redundant once you realize that. And that's when you can transition from a way of operating on pure rationality, ratios, and move into a more loving framework of being. Because if you can appreciate that everything here was written, then you can start paying attention to what these words actually mean in your story, as opposed to being caught up in the events of the story. You can start seeing, what's the structure of meaning here? It's less about what's happening to the characters and where they're going, and more about what does that actually mean along the way. And that's kind of what I'd I'm blanking a little bit, man. Sorry, you went off screen. I've lost my flow a little bit.
You bring up excellent points as always, dude.
Cheers, brother.
A lot of
Are
these
you
thoughts
taking a break?
require a lot of these just grabbing something. A lot of these thoughts require extensive deliberation in order to really realize even where they go, right? You're following the thought field or whatever's coming to you, and it's being revealed as you go. Is that correct?
Yeah. Like what's happening is when I moved to this new framework of analyzing what's happening to me, in my story at least, it's expanded the meaning by multiples, to the point where it's like it's all meaning. There's nothing devoid of meaning. Not just like in what's happening to me or the people in my life or the things that happen in my life, but the actual structure of everything within this world is all meaningful, down to every letter, every number, every angle. And it's being stitched in such a way that it's communicating what it is in every aspect of itself. Seems to be holographically connecting back to the same message and meaning. Just I'll give you an example of something that's happened to me in the last week, because it might help elucidate some of the things that are transforming the way I am in relationship with what you'd call the spirit. About a year and a half ago or something, I was going through like a void process, and during that, a lot of this stuff becomes apparent, where you can see that you can see that we're all one. Not in a new agey kind of way, but where like the veils of communication get lifted, and it's no longer you hearing the world, it's you hearing yourself speaking to yourself in everything. So it goes from analyzing things that are external to you to hearing your own echo coming back to you, like an intimate love story. And so you'll hear, like, when schizophrenics and stuff are having these kind of breakthroughs, they get like this Truman Show effect or whatever, where basically like they hear that the radio is talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is like another higher level to that, where you realize that everyone on the radio is you, and they're directly talking to you about things that are happening right now in your life or whatever. It's like they're not actors in the Truman Show. They're literally you, just an echoing. It's incredible. That's what you kind of go through in this void phase, is because you've the void is just a reference to like not having veils anymore.
Is this why we
and that was about it.
Sorry, meet people or connect with people that seem to resonate with various aspects of ourselves, you think? Because they, in fact, are aspects of self. Is that where you're going?
Um, this is more like your story. This is more like the part where the story starts revealing itself to you as a handcrafted tale, where that the world starts speaking to you directly, breaking the fourth wall, basically. And things begin happening where you realize, oh shit, every single thing has been handwritten for me. I'm not talking about everything that happens to you is handwritten for me. I'm saying that everything that happens to all of us is handwritten for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And when the veil comes down, you can actually not just understand that, but see it. It's not it's one of the most loving and scary things that you can experience because it feels like you are in a simulation. Like you're like, okay, this is a fucking simulation because like the world is now talking to me and telling me it's a simulation. Kind of like that. Anyway, I didn't want to get stuck there. I just wanted to point out that this is a time when the veils come down, when you're going through this, and it's not an experience like a one-off event. It's like a lasts for months or years, even. Like I feel like I'm still in the void. I don't think I've ever left it since going in there. But one of the things that happened is I started taking a lot of Epsom salt baths, and during these baths is where I would have these like experiences of like going through these initiations. But because my imagination isn't visual, it's like the symbols of the initiation get fed to me. Like I'll get the feeling of like a scorpion stinging me or something. I'm not seeing a scorpion stinging me, but I'll feel it. Like that's the symbol that's coming through, and I'm like, okay, I'm going through this fucking scorpion, and then I can feel I'm at these gates, and there's like torches, right? But I don't see gates and torches. I just understand I'm going through this in my subconscious or whatever. And after I went through a few of these things in the bathtub, I essentially kind of gave myself to the spirit, almost like a sacrificial kind of self-sacrifice, like putting yourself in a coffin kind of thing, but I was in a bathtub. And it was kind of like giving myself up. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I have something I want to say to you about. It's a technical glitch. I don't know if you can control your HD camera and put it at a lower setting, only because you consistently freeze.
Okay.
Your
I'll try
video
720.
freezes, and I think it's just because it's you probably have it in the highest setting, right?
Yeah, I've just pulled it down a little bit, and we'll see how it goes. It might be my upload speeds. It might be my
stream
upload
a little
speeds.
smoother is what I'm thinking. Because I don't see it happening on mine. Mine's probably on the low setting. I don't know. I think it auto detects what you're capable of. I don't have a super high speed internet. I have the best I can get in my location, but
we'll see how that goes, man. If it keeps freezing, I'll lower it again. Let me know.
Oh, it's looking better already. Good job.
All right.
I still see the beautiful beard, man.
Yeah, awesome.
So
my shining mane.
You're not losing anything. Still sparkling and glowing energy. Yeah, man. You got the beautiful beard and the perfect name to go with it. So
Harry, bro.
Yeah, it's like a sun. It's a metaphor for the sun, shining like the sun, brother.
Yeah. Well, I looked at the Garden of Eden Renaissance paintings, and they're all redheads. So something to that. Yeah.
You have a red beard. It's so strange that all the So all the like I see it, it's not just the Renaissance, but going back through history, all the different time periods. You see these guys, red hair. Now sometimes they call them the bad guys. Sometimes they're the bad guys, but they're always there. What one reason or another? These redhead dudes.
Yeah.
A lot of the sci-fi
Ginger.
I read that I really liked over the years also talked about these like it's like going back to the Viracochas and these kind of characters from these mythological characters from ancient history. Who knows why they should be redheads? Because that's like the least common. Well, I mean, there's plenty of redheads, but I mean, like on percentage wise, it's the lowest amount of normal hair colors for people for some reason.
Hmm.
But you've got like Muhammad is supposedly. It's funny because it's all the places where like in China, Japan, all these places where they all have black hair, and there's this red haired dude that was running shit. It's
Yeah.
hilarious. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
here, I used to live in Nevada, and we're all around these desert states. I was born in Michigan, but here I've been all around these desert states for years, most of my whole life. So Nevada, California, Arizona, a little bit Utah, a little bit Colorado, but mostly those Nevada, California, and Arizona. And there's these caves over there called the Lovelock Caves, right where I was going to high school in that area. And supposedly there are these red-haired giants that had to get holed up in those caves and were like apparently killed by the natives because
Yeah.
some say, I always hear the stories, well, these giants were red-haired, but they're bad guys and they were eating people. I'm not convinced though, because a lot of the times what I see is like the megaphonia was that certain groups were targeted and killed. So I'm not really sure about who's good
Yeah.
and bad. And I don't even add that aspect. I just think it's fascinating to find a friggin' mummies with red hair. And
Yeah,
there's
man.
a lot of them. I'd like to
The
hear somebody
pharaohs.
make an explanation about that someday that isn't too ludicrous, some kind of
Yeah.
reasonable explanation. Like, were they like the Easter Island, those figurines with those red hats? Apparently, there's something about redheads there going on. I don't
Yeah.
know, but that's
Yeah.
what I've heard people make the claim. They can't claim of that the red haired giants again.
Well, yeah. I've heard of
So
Nephilim. I've heard the Nephilim have red hair. Maybe that's what it's pointing to.
yeah, and they show them as evil too. They show them as like Ronald McDonald, the clown type of killer clown from outer space
Yeah.
model. You know,
Yeah. Gingers
I
get
don't
a lot
buy
of
it, but
flack.
it's I don't believe it, but they definitely love to show these characters with. It is like the kind of like the silliest hair color. You have really nice beard color, very nice. I had red hair as a kid, and
Yeah.
I got mocked a lot over that. It was like the color of like a carrot, It was like
Yeah.
a glow in the dark carrot. And my
Yeah.
beard and everything was like that for most of my life.
Wow.
So
Well, they
yeah,
say gingers
there
have no
wasn't too much
souls,
good to say
man.
about it back then. But now I see it differently. Now that I've lost the red hair, it's all going away. All my hair is turning white. Well, not yet, but you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
gradually happening
All the
once I hit
gingers turn
50.
white.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so
They
enjoy
say,
that
yeah.
beautiful color while you got it, man.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I love it. You know. So yeah, I would just go back to being in a bathtub as well. So after going through this kind of bathtub kind of thing, I was like, are you familiar with the tarot cards at all?
A little bit.
Have you
I
seen
got
the
a couple
hanged
bucks.
man? How he's got his leg crossed like a four?
Yes, I am familiar with
Yeah.
it.
I found myself in the bathtub in that position just naturally. And I was doing some kind of like just offering myself to the spirit, basically. Like just trying to bring the spirit more into my presence, because the way I learned about the spirit was that the spirit is everything. So before we get to see all this matter and light, that's like a refraction of the spirit. So because I understand it that way, I understand that the spirit itself precedes material form. And so I understand this body to be a projection of spirit. So when I'm offering myself to the spirit, I'm really trying to like just embody what I already know, but haven't yet fully become yet. Because you can know a lot of things, but that knowledge doesn't do anything. It's just information.
Agree.
The only way to actually bring to life that knowledge is to become the actual embodiment of it. So I've got like a natural inclination to embody the spirit that I know to be the substrate of our existence. That's been my drive ever since I learned about it. And so when I was like, after I kind of offered myself in the hangman position, the spirit said to me, you don't need to breathe anymore.
Oh.
And like, that was clearly like you don't expect to hear that.
Oh no, you mentioned something about that a couple weeks back, and I didn't know what to say. I've not heard that one before. So
yeah.
how'd that work out for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the word spirit itself means breath. So when it said you don't need to breathe anymore, I was thinking, well, I like breathing because I see it as like our sexual act, the sexual act of union with the spirit is this breath, the breathing in and out.
It feels very
But it's
inspiring.
still, yeah. So I was like, I'm gonna keep breathing, but I'm gonna use it as like a way to commune with you. And then the following year was pretty much like the hardest year of losses for me in my life, but also peaceful and joyous as well at the same time, because that's kind of what this level of grounding yourself in the spirit kind of enables you to feel the great sorrows without losing your center. And throughout this year, it's been not just losses, but expressing everything that needs to be expressed. Because one thing they say about the void is that you're only supposed to go there when you've got nothing left to hear, nothing left, no shadows in your closet. You're not holding on to anything anymore. And if you still are doing that, then it's going to be very apparent, because the void is like emptying yourself. And if you empty everything except your shadows, then all you've got left is your shadows. So my following year was totally dominated by everything that I hadn't emptied myself of during that time, which is it's a good thing. I'm not. It's a good thing that happened. It's all a learning experience, right? And that's why the whole year was spent, mourning my dog, expressing myself with poetry and stuff, and just any ideas that I wanted to get out. That was the year to get them out, so I'm not holding on to any regrets. So I'm not like, I wish I did this or I wish I did that.
Your image is freezing and blurring again. I don't know if you can take
Oh,
it
is it?
down.
Yeah, I'll take it down. We'll try
Sometimes
again.
it pauses in an awkward place, and I want you to know about it before you.
We'll see if that helps. It's because I'm doing a cloud recording and a local recording. Anyway.
Oh, is that what it is? Is cloud? Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe
because I'm
you
uploading
can't
to the
fix it, but
cloud.
it's still doing it. So I don't know. Maybe
No, I
it's not
can't really.
maybe it's not your HD level settings at all. Maybe it's that cloud thing causing that.
Yeah, I can't.
Well, you might as well put it back then.
Yeah, I'll put it back.
Put it wherever you want it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
I won't
sweet,
bring it up
man.
again. I thought it was something we could fix.
As long as the audio is still coming through, we'll keep it OG.
Yeah.
Sweet. But I guess that was lit. Yeah, it was like taking a very long time to explain that. A couple of weeks ago would have been like a year and 3 months or something since that bathtub where it said you don't need to breathe anymore, and it was my first. And I was having a bath a couple of weeks ago. It was the first bath I've had in a very long time, and I didn't need to have a bath, but I was watching some content and they kept saying Epsom salts and bath, and I'm like, okay, I think I need to take a bath. And so I went to take the bath again, and pretty early into it, it came to me, you don't need to breathe anymore. And I was kind of like, well, do I have anything left? And I realized I don't really have anything left anymore. So I'm like, okay, I'm ready to give up even my breath to the spirit, because I know that the spirit's breath precedes this body. Mm-hmm. And so in the bath, I I just offered my breath and stopped breathing for a very long time, probably 15, 20 minutes. And then during that 20 minutes, the mind kept kind of saying, hey, what's going on? How's your body? Are you dying? Like, you're not breathing. And every time the thought would come, a little breath would come. And what I realized was the mind itself was creating the breath. And so every small movement of the mind that would have a thought, are you okay? Are you still alive or whatever, would create the breath. And I learned that the mind itself moves through the breath.
Wow.
So what happened is I stopped breathing through my mouth and nose, and something opened up below my navel.
Oh my God.
And so the body was still breathing, but I wasn't anymore. So it was like the spirit or whatever was coming through this navel area of the body and injecting itself into me to sustain me while I wasn't breathing.
Was it at the navel or below in the sacral?
I'm actually not really familiar with navel or sacral. I'm not familiar with body parts or chakras or anything. Okay. So and it's not really it doesn't really feel like it's happening in the body. But it feels like if there was going to be an entry point, it's going to be like around, I don't know, around this area of the body.
Ah, okay. Well, I just wanted to interject. I don't want to stop the story, but the only time I've ever heard of such thing was in certain types of mythologies that are related to some of these spiritual topics. And it was about being able to breathe through your phallic.
Okay.
I
Through
don't
the
know
phallic.
if that could possibly be a reality, but man, that is
Yeah.
intriguing. That is really interesting that you felt that and you coming through that area, even if it was the whether it
Yeah.
was the navel or wherever, just amazing. Because, well, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously we once breathed through the navel, with the in the
And that's what
umbilical.
it is. That's what it is. So it's basically fetal breathing. Um, but it's just how instead of being connected to a mother, you're connected to the soul, which is the mother, and the spirit is the one breathing into you, which is already happening anyway. That's how you have any existence.
Hmm.
It's just about like embodying that knowledge, because that's the difference. If you know that, it doesn't mean anything. But if you
Well,
become that, then you suddenly,
you
yep.
told me about this experience and a couple weeks ago. I didn't know you had had that sort of like instruction from over a year ago, and
Yeah.
you did not sort of obey. Is that the idea? You sort of
I just didn't
resisted. You
understand it.
resist.
I didn't
Okay.
understand it. Yeah, because like it's one thing to say you don't need something anymore,
Hmm.
but it takes. I still had things I hadn't expressed yet with my mind that I needed my
Sure.
mind for, and so
Right.
giving up the breath is like giving up your mind in a way,
Well, it seemed
and
like you would be giving up your life potentially.
everything,
Potentially.
everything,
Right.
everything. Exactly right.
So yeah.
But you got to get to that point where you genuinely are ready to do that, and it's not going to happen until you are ready. And that's why I didn't do it straight away, because I wasn't ready. Um, my spirit might have told me I could have done it, but doesn't mean I was ready to do it. It's good to have a bit of advance notice on this shit, because I had a year and a half, a year and 3 months to contemplate what that even means,
Hmm.
to not need to breathe. Um, and yeah, something like when I got out
It's
of the
interesting.
bathtub.
The bath aspect, dude. Just to throw this in there is
Yeah.
interesting because of the waters aspect. Whether or not there was Epsom salts or not, just water. I mean, there's the whole thing of us being in water, and that it's like the womb. Let's say it is so peaceful. I've felt that peace many times, just in a pool or in a lake or in the ocean or wherever in the river, and just where I never wanted to come out. I just wanted to go under, and it's so peaceful. It is incredibly peaceful when you're under the surface and you're holding your breath. You're
Hmm.
not breathing, and there's no movement, and there's this like stillness that feels divine. And many times I felt I could remain there. I wanted just to remain there. I didn't want to come up. I didn't want to breathe, you know.
Yeah.
So you were able to sustain this, or it felt like you were sustaining this for great lengths of time.
Yeah, I didn't need to breathe again, but I did it any like I think there's progressions to these things, you know.
Mhm.
I think it's wise to like try to embody these things in a way that's actually going to be functional for your life. And when these things happen, you have a choice to make. You can try to go all in, or you can try to actually just progressively integrate that into your day-to-day life, so that you're not having to become something else. You can bring
Mhm.
it back, because what's the point of doing these things if I have to spend my days in isolation, not doing anything else but not breathing, you know, like what purpose would that have? I don't think that serves my purpose in any way. And so like at that point, you know, I don't want to become like a yogi now and go and live in a cave, sorry. So I tried to bring that with me. I'm like, okay, if I don't need to breathe anymore, let's go for a walk and see what happens. And I went for a walk, and there were these tiny, tranquil breaths, but it wasn't normal breathing anymore. So the breathing has actually changed permanently, where it's so subtle that it's barely noticeable. And so I went for like a 1 or 2 hour walk or whatever, 1.5 hour walk, walking naturally with barely any breath. And I was like, I should definitely be like dying. I should be losing, whatever, you know. I'm thinking like scientifically and biologically, like this is not possible.
The Walking Dead.
Yeah. And that's the mind doing its thing. Like, and every time the mind would do that, more breaths would come. And so it was teaching me that the mind moves with the outward breath. And so I learned that there's the in breath and then the out breath. And the out breath is our breathing. And the in breath is the spirit coming through the soul. And so what we think of as breathing is merely the outward appearance of breath. But it's already happened on a pre-manifestation level, basically. So when I would when I would not move, when I would be still, this is what taught me what stillness actually is, because I've been in a state of constant meditation for a very long time, for the few years, but I've never entered a point of stillness. And so that breathless state taught me what stillness really is. And as soon as I got to experience it, I got to look it up and be like, well, you know, I'm sure I'm not the first person to ever discover this breathless state. It turns out it's a known thing for like niche yogis. That's when I started looking up Kriya Yoga. And I sent you a link as well to this other Hatha Yoga thing where they talk about the breathless state. And I was just able to see that these are natural progressions and not not something I should be worried about. Yeah.
But it's rather advanced, I would say. And like you haven't really, I mean, you haven't really laid out the groundwork for me as far as feeling like you were in a continuous meditative state for years. How do you define your your type of meditative state? Is it a certain type of typology that you're using, or like is there a, you know, can you give me some idea of what type of meditation you mean exactly?
Yeah. So in our previous talks, we talked about how I only really meditated officially once, and it wasn't a meditation. It was more like a visualization exercise. And what I ended up being able to see through that was the circle of my soul, and everything being contained within that being powered by the spirit. From that day onwards, I would be in a constant meditation because I'm perceiving the world through that unified circle. And so it's like a constant frame of reference. I'm observing everything that's going on. Whereas in a normal state of mind, you focus on the parts. And because you're focused on the parts, you get pulled into the parts of things, and you're never seeing the full picture of what's actually going on. So it was just a switch in the frame of the way I actually view the reality, perceiving the whole picture, I guess. Like, it was like when a baby is born, they get to observe reality and learn about reality from scratch. But then after they learn enough things, they stop perceiving reality and they start living through their knowledge of reality instead. And when that happens, they're no longer perceiving anymore the new. Instead, they're living through the old. They're living through the memories instead. So life becomes a frame of reference to knowledge, as opposed to a direct observation of things as they're happening now. So what meditation is having awareness of what's happening now and the movements of what's happening now without being without being pulled by individual threads. And I guess fishing might be a good analogy for it. It's like getting caught up in the objects of reality, or the knowledge of reality is like getting caught on a hook. You get pulled towards the destination of that knowledge, whatever that is.
Interesting you say it that way, because I have I've always seen walking. For myself, when I would be walking, doing extensive walks, I've often felt like I was in a meditation, and I found a great deal of. I know it happens to runners and others too, but for me, it was just walking, and just only the breath and the beauty of my environments as I passed through, with letting go of thoughts as much as possible, and just experiencing, like you said, being there and in the present moment, in the instant. I've also felt it even driving. I've many times driven across the United States and over great distances of constant just staring forward, but having to stay at attention on every tiny a bump in the road or anything that's coming your way over a period of many hours. That too became a meditation for me.
Yeah.
But continue. I just wanted to chat once in a while.
So it's kind of like, not getting caught in your own traps, I guess. Like an example might be like, I might accidentally spill a whole kettle full of boiling water on my feet, right? Now,
Oops.
if I was caught by the hook of that, I would get tunnel vision towards that reaction to that situation. I would scream. I would go, why me? This is like a terrible thing, and now it's a disaster. Now my whole world's melting down, basically. That's what I mean by normal, non-meditative observation. Sure. And then the meditative version of that would be, I've just spilled a boiling water, right? And now I'm observing that fact, and now I'm going to go get a towel and dance my way over to the towel and clean it up. Like, I'm not caught by the hook of that. The tragedy has happened, and yet I'm observing all the events unaffected by that. My center is unchanged by what's going on. And that enables me to actually see everything that's going on. When I'm not meditative, I only see the boiling water, I only see the pain, I only see the mess, I only see the problem. But when I'm meditating, I see everything that's going on. But I'm centered. I'm completely unaffected by it.
Yeah, you're the sentient observer.
Yeah, and I'm learning. I'm able to observe.
Yeah.
The reaction. And what this enables, yes, exactly. And what this enables me to do is to actually learn about what is thought, what is emotions, what are reactions. You can't learn about them when you're caught up in them. So it's like you're reestablishing what is reality by meditating and observing what's actually going on in reality instead of being caught like a fish. You're watching like the fisherman. And that's what I would just describe. You're just watching what's going on in your own mind. That's meditation. You're being mindful.
Yeah. Yeah. Very nice.
I just got to take a leak, brother. I'll be back in a minute.
Okey-doke. So it's fascinating listening to other people's experiences and how they experience reality and how they the conclusions they draw. We all seem to have. I can agree with you that we are one, but yet we definitely have a lot of differences, subtle variations, an infinite variety of us. And so to experience it's very seldom that you can actually experience someone else's experience unless it's written on their face or their expressions. To have somebody recount their experience honestly is probably a little too rare, to be honest, because people reframe things often not wanting to be judged, not wanting to feel like the diminishment in the eyes of others when we say things that make us feel like, oh, that's something I've been mocked for in the past, or something that's something that I've experienced as a negative, perhaps in my reality stream and previously. So, like a humiliation, let's say. And a lot of us have so many of those sort of events in our history, in our memory, haunting our memories, you know? These are kind of guideposts, the memories, the painful memories, and the positive, loving memories both serve this function to like give us a guidepost for who we think we are. I don't know what happened to the camera, but it suddenly sort of like, can
No,
you see it
yeah.
on your end?
No. Stop
On
and
my
start
side,
again.
my image has collapsed to a narrow band in the center. Oh, now I'm the whole. Okay, well that worked.
That work?
Whoa, I'm on
All
the.
right.
I get to be the left side of the brain for a little while.
Nice. Well switched. Yeah,
I think I already
what you're
was.
saying.
I think I was
Yeah,
already
no.
representing that, but okay.
Yeah. What you're saying about the memories end up being almost like we use them as the frame of reference for our future reactions, because we haven't moved on from them in a way. Like, you know how I was saying earlier, it's if our lives were written by a genius, infinite intelligence, right, then every problem that we've experienced in our life, every trauma, has been character building. But like, if we as the character are so caught up in what's happened in the past, then we're not open to the fruit of all that pain, where that's leading us. We're still trapped in what happened before. We're not growing, even though our story is growing. We're holding on to what we used to be, and we still think we are that small child that was traumatized, because we're the toddler that started living. We stopped meditating, we started living through the memory itself. And so what we think we are is the events that have happened to us.
That brings up something that I've questioned about. Now, you probably, I may be able to guess your answer, but let me just say that, like, there's a debate, or I've had a debate within my own mind as to whether or not the significance of those experiences that we had, let's say childhood experiences, circumstances, living conditions and circumstances, and impactful events that formed our character to, like, to a degree, that what we perceive as of ourselves, what we perceive as ourselves, how we look at ourselves. Some people see themselves, uh, some people seem to see themselves in very strange ways. But I mean, I feel like most of my own ideas of self came from those early experiences, very early age. So early that I can't remember all, I can't remember. When you're a little child, you can't remember what happened, but you learn some things. And then
Mhm.
you took it in as part of, let's say, how people react to you. If you see to if you observe that where you go, people don't seem to like you, let's say, if someone has this mindset, people don't like me, people don't gravitate to me, people, it can become a mantra in a way that it, like you said, it creates a perpetual situation for those people with the power of their own minds can create that situation for themselves, um, by rewriting or taking some authorship at some point in life. Just realizing, okay, I'm not a slave to those experiences. I can supersede those experiences, and I can see that from other people, how other people around me have done it and how they behave. You can you can change it. You can use that energy and maybe transmute it to something that's a positive energetic. It might not go away. It might still be like an inner teaching and in the heart of, like, a lot of times you'll see people who are, let's say, really successful with women. Let's say men who become really successful with women, and they've mastered techniques to allow this. A lot of these guys, it's because they had to start doing this because they felt so less than, because they had no success with women, and they felt like they were getting noticed, and when they did get noticed, maybe they were friend zoned or something like that, perpetually, until they felt like, okay, this is my lot in life, this is who I am, have to accept it. And but there's clear evidence that you can rewrite the script on those types of things, by taking certain actions, and then you can turn that all around. And sometimes people turn it around and they become abusive once they've learned what you can do with the power of your mind, when it comes to not only, like, almost like a revenge. Now they want to control or manipulate people or be abusive, or in some
Mhm.
way they're just acting out. They're finding out what are the limitations. There's no limitation. You can go so far with these things, and you can get more, what seems like more attracting more power to yourself. It may feel that way, but on the inside, they still have that memory of self, and that's what's causing them to do it. That memory of those early hurts, those early rejections, those early pains that caused the problem in the first place. So it's possible to overcorrect as well, and still feel empty, because you can find that a lot of men can be actually quite happy without a relationship. You don't need that really necessarily. And but then if you get your heart set that you have to, or you're a failure, and then you start doing all these actions, and I'll see guys who, when they actually, I've experienced this myself. If you go out and you try to pick up a girl on any given night and you fail, it's like crushing once you get acclimatized to being able to do it. and it feels at times like, wow. I mean, it's like magic. It was like magic. And then, but when it doesn't work, it was like so devastating. You feel lower than you ever did in the beginning. It's hard to describe, but maybe you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. I just find it
Yeah.
fascinating how the story of our lives plays out. It's like you had a lesson, you went the opposite direction, and you the lesson was that, hey, maybe the lesson is you don't need it, but then you choose to take it anyways and create that sort of mindset. I think there's a value in that, but nevertheless, there can be negative consequences that come from it. So it's not always good, but I just find it's fascinating how powerful we are mentally. Now,
Yeah.
whether the
Yeah.
spirit is entering into those things, I don't know. I don't know exactly. But what you project mentally seems to create a field of some sort that can attract, you know, it can attract others to where then you no longer even have to do anything. It just happens. It just seems to happen by magic. That's a
Yeah.
fascinating
It
feeling.
is. It is magic.
Mhm.
So like the reason that happens is because we are microcosms of divine power. And so each of us is imbued with a soul. That soul itself creates the entire cosmos within it. So
Hmm.
that means the entire cosmos is contained within ourselves. That means in order for us to experience a world, we have to build the world. And so the worlds that we do build are contained in our minds. Besides what's in front of you right now, you can only see a few things, but your world is much bigger than that, isn't it? Your world is infinitely, no, maybe not infinitely, but it's much bigger than what you can just see right now in front of your eyes.
Sure.
That tells you that your world exists in your mind, what you think of the world.
Mhm.
And so there's two aspects of that, was what we think of the world versus what's actually what we are. And so what we are doesn't need a mind to construct a narrative, or it doesn't need a framework. What we are exists before the mind itself. But because everyone gets to create with their mind itself is their limitation. It's what defines their limitation.
Hmm.
And so when you're talking about people who experience trauma, a lot of the time they're talking about a power vacuum here, a loss of power, a feeling of powerlessness takes place. And we attempt to use our mind to create a structure that enables us to feel power. And for some people, that that power is manipulating other people and inflicting the same harm that was inflicted on them.
Sure.
But that leads to an emptiness as well, because it's not really fulfilling you. It's only fulfilling your power void that you have.
Yeah.
It's not creating a harmony or love or anything like that. It's trading one trauma for um, a false power solution. And that abuse of power ends up abusing your own self as a result. Um, but when it comes to like our whole minds are crafted using memories, that memory is information that we've obtained external to our own self. So that means we're building we're building worlds based on what we're told. Like we're building our own world in our mind based on echoes of other people. And when we're doing that, we're not building our own world, we're building their world that we've learned about. And we end up reinforcing that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if you if that makes sense to connect to what you're saying here. Is like we're seeking power through the mind, but the mind is based on echoes and reflections, so there's no real power there.
Mhm.
All it has the power to do is add more structures on top of the structures you've already created, and you can adjust the structures and you can move them around, but none of them are going to start generating a source of power, because the source of the power precedes the mental structures themselves.
Good
Yeah.
point. So you were
But
telling me about
sorry,
your journey.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, it's cool. I brought that up because I started with that we're all given a soul, right? And that soul is like a divine creative power in itself. We contain the whole cosmos. That means we have the creative power of the cosmos within our soul. And so what we choose to do with that determines the prison that we make for ourselves ultimately. But we can take that back at any time. So right in front of you, right, is a self-contained cosmos within your field of view. Anything you can think of outside of that is it's part of your mental world. So if your entire life exists only in the mental world, then at any time you can disconnect from that and bring your world back to exactly where you are. That's kind of what I talk about when I say my mind doesn't live in time anymore. My world doesn't exist in time either, in the same sense, because my world is here. You're in my world right now, right? This room is in my world. What I see is in my world. What I feel is in my world. There's no world operating outside of that. I'm not denying shit's going on, but my world is self-contained. It's not a mental object. It's an actual, it is only beingness. There's no need to create a projected reality outside of that.
Interesting.
And so, like, bringing it back to the breathless thing that we're talking about, what these yogis explain this as is that the movement of the spirit, they call the spirit prana, the movement of the spirit is what creates this experience that we have. And when you stop breathing, you're stopping the movement of the spirit. And you're bringing the spirit, which is normally dynamic, into stillness. And they refer to that as like Shiva. In the Indian terms, they call it Shakti and Shiva. Shakti is the spirit, and Shiva would be that you would say the soul entity, the unmoving circle or whatever. And when the circle becomes still or whatever, the Shakti stops dancing and she comes back into Shiva or whatever, and they come into union again. And that's when the world itself stops, basically. But as long as that Shakti's moving, that's when we have an experience. And that's mediated with the mind. Yeah.
Are you utilizing any sort of substances with any of your practices?
Not as part of my practice, but I take substances just because I have certain resistances, and these substances help me confront those in a way. What happened, like when I had my awakening or whatever, I was on a carnivore diet, eating only meat,
Mhm.
smoking cannabis, more cannabis than I've ever smoked in my whole life, smoking cigarettes. I had a coffee habit, and none of that got in the way
Hmm.
of my realization.
Cool.
But then after that happened, I started researching, this world, what people call spirituality in this world, and all these gurus are saying, you can't eat meat, you can't have sex, you can't do drugs, you got to be this and that.
Hmm.
But to me, I've already made my realization without all that bullshit. So then all of these things you're saying I need to do are bullshit, right? But there's part of me that does seek perfection. I seek perfection. And so I know that if I stopped drinking coffee and if I stopped smoking weed, that I would probably be more capable of housing the spirit in this body, right? So there's this part of me that makes me want to be like a ascetic in that way, just to like increase the potential more. But there's this other part of me. It's written into my story that at least I'm smoking weed, I'm having coffee, and maybe that's part of what makes me unique. Like, is that I can show to people you don't need to be some perfected human being to open yourself up to these things. You can actually be as imperfect as you want to be, and nothing can stop the spirit. So like my suffering is with everything that I consume basically causes me suffering, and that acts as like a fuel almost
Hmm.
to bring me back to yearn more for the love and to experience that, not just as a memory, but like bring it into my every breath kind of thing.
That's
And
interesting. Well, what do you think about the concept of the ascetic concept that yes, you can experience the joys of sex without sex. You can experience the joy of
yeah,
drunkenness without the physical drunkenness, or whether it's the herb or whether it's whatever it might be. Um, my own experience has been that not whether you can achieve these things independent of any substances, because I know that you can. There's a lot of different types of experiences that tell you that you can experience it. Sometimes it helps, right? And
mm-hmm.
sometimes it can be a beneficial. Sometimes it could be a negative. And so depending on what it is and how you're using it, maybe. But I have felt when I was fasting, on longer fasting, and leaving behind all substances, there was a refreshing sensation that was very special, that
Yeah,
I think I might have felt better than I'd ever felt in my life. And there was no source of, it wasn't from sugar, because I didn't have any. I mean, I didn't have anything in my body. You can have a sensation of, I've just done something good for myself when we consume something. But yeah,
Yeah.
letting go of coffee and caffeine was hard after letting go of alcohol and drugs and other things that I had used in the past. Those things were hard, and some took a long period of time to detox. That took,
Yeah, they do.
I would even
They
say,
do.
a couple of years of detoxing. I mean, there's the immediate sense of a detox, but I'm talking about full detox to where you no longer even have the craving or anything for those
Hmm.
substances or whatever. But then once that happened, and I eventually felt like I was truly actually free of them, there was a feeling of being lighter, a feeling of being um, less bound to the physical that came along with that. And the physical became less important toward those feelings of euphoria and whatnot. So I would say that's
Yeah.
the superior method, and it doesn't require. I don't need a drug dealer for that,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Absolutely.
or a card to go down to the pharmacy for that. Now, I'm not saying I'm there all the time. It's always like you go through periods where you become more. Maybe not. I mean, not maybe not everybody, but I've gone through periods where I was more spiritual, and then revert again to being carnal, and then back and forth. Because surely there's a little bit. There's definitely a benefit to the periods of time that you spend being more ascetic, as long as you don't harm yourself physically. But there's
Yeah.
benefit to it, and
Dude.
some of it, even if it's just self discipline. So self
Yeah.
discipline of the mind, self discipline of the body, and the desires, all the desires. And sometimes I'll come back and I won't have any more desire, and then I'll have to like think, well, am I doing something wrong by letting go of desire? And letting go of desire, could it be a negative? Because part of it has to do with like my age. I think at my age, like sexuality, for example, has something of a time limit. Your hormones and everything are maxed out for. So it's a lot easier for somebody my age or after your age 50 or you're approaching your later part of life. It's a lot easier for some of us to say, I don't need sex or I don't need, because
Yeah.
it's sort of
Yeah.
like modus operandi. It's like the normal way of life. Whereas some of the groups and people I associate with in magism and others, it's like we're taught that we need to keep that fire burning. And they're not just talking about like the spiritual inner essence fire, they're talking about the physical burning of the flame representing desires, and a lot of that being sexual desire. Now, I don't totally agree with this, I'm not like on board. I'm just telling you this is one of the aspects of the teaching that makes it interesting. So you have, I'm sure you're familiar with these different schools. You've got a Jacobian school of a concept of it's not truly Jacobian, but it's like this idea of embracing what we would think of as sin, all vice, all these types of things that we would think of as vice, embracing it, and then utilizing that as your spiritual energy, and
Yeah. Yeah.
or becoming totally ascetic and using that. I can't go with either. I'm more of like I'm just going to stay. I feel like I need to do a little bit of both.
Yep.
Part of it is like there's a whole bunch of people around me, and I'm not alone. You know, and
Yeah, man.
I have to meet out satisfaction to my wife and to my children and others and friends and just people you're around. And so there's a question of like, do do we owe something to the world? Are we supposed to retreat into ourselves and in this way that would become more purely ascetic, or are we supposed to be doing something active, within the world's structure that do we have some role that we need to play, or I don't know. That's not the whole of
Yeah.
it. A lot of it is just life. you know I
Mhm.
find that when I don't eat, I lose all hunger. And then after that, I don't care about which kind of food. I'm not like necessarily attracted to it. But then when I start eating it again, I was like, yeah, no, I'm rediscovering like the joy of the taste of a food, or a
Yeah,
drink or
yeah,
something that's like people will write poetry about the
yeah,
flavor of
yeah,
something, or the smell of all these kind of things that people. It's the feel the poets, you know.
yeah, yeah,
It's hard to decide, and like to say to walk away from sex completely, it feels forbidden in some way, because it's as though she's waiting, and there's a sexual aspect to that. Now I could say, okay, well, I'm going to make that sexual aspect is purely internal. Actually, it's purely internal, and so I don't need to physically do anything about it. And so I don't chase it or anything, like I would when I was young, let's
yeah,
say. I don't do any of that. I'm torn off on whether or not it's time to just let it go and retain. Yeah, I need to, about the retention concept. I need to retain all of my life force, so
yeah,
that way I can stay healthy and live longer and have more power to my lend more power to my imagination and to my you know what I'm saying, more of these ideas.
yeah,
Any thoughts on
yeah.
that?
I'm with you. Yeah, yeah,
My
definitely.
lighting here.
Especially the sexual thing, man. Uh, is just like I'll get onto the sexual aspect of it in a minute. Just broadly speaking, like I've come to a level of acceptance where I come from a pretty like an unstable childhood, and that leads to like having habits and stuff, like over your life, and these things become structural components, but they're also evolutionary forces, and they're dynamic. Like,
Uh-huh.
I spent most of my life not interested in eating food. I used to think of it just like as an energy input. But lately, I am in love with the food experience and enjoying the taste and the different flavors and all that, and use that as a way to be intimate with myself, with my experience with the spirit. Um, but like, I don't actually think I'm in control of my desires. The desires themselves are like a story. They're part of the story plot in a way. They're just like they're they're dynamic, and so like when I had my awakening, I quit coffee cold turkey for like 6 months. It wasn't a problem. Like, I learned that I have the willpower to do whatever I desire. Um, Once you know that, then you can also accept that your desires are what they are. They're providing some kind of purpose for you, whether you understand it or not. And that goes for drug use, that goes for worldly desires, sexual desires. They're all a dynamic evolutionary component to you coming to a level of self acceptance and self knowledge. Um, Like, I don't think people sit there and say, "I'm going to desire this now. I'm going to desire that now." They don't. The desire happens, and then they fucking choose to either act or not. Right?
Sometimes, well, I do that. I sometimes have to decide that I need to do. I people want things all the time, and a lot of people, like I'm around people. I've gotten used to people whose main way of living and thinking is the desire to acquire something. Let's say it could be anything: a new car, new clothes, new furniture, new house, new more and more and more things, and the pursuit of the acquisition is what feeds their fire and makes them happy. This is like how they operate, you know? And I
Yeah.
don't feel that. And so I've had to learn to try to cultivate. I've tried to cultivate certain desires, not because I think it's better or good, but because I'm experimenting. Let's say,
Hmm.
the same as you would say, well, if you have no desire to go out in public, to go, let's say, eat in a restaurant, a big public space with a lot of people, I never feel the desire to do that. I forced myself to do that, and I cultivated it until I liked doing it. And then it became a habit, and it became a bad habit, right?
Right, right,
But the
yeah, yeah,
point is, the socializing aspect and all those things, maybe that was a big part of it. And there's a lot that goes to it. You can go along, it goes right into the sex stuff I was talking about, where you go and try to meet women. It's no different. You go to meet if you make friends with strangers and you make friends, that is a ritual that a human being can learn to get good at. Or it's a practice. It's a
yeah,
practice.
yeah.
And so if you
Hmm.
practice at something, you become better and better at it, right? Some people
Yep.
practice to manipulate others, and they practice to do scam people and to do things like that, to do bad things. I stay away from those types of practices. But when it comes to practicing, just to have the more times that, let's say, you would meet a person and you brush against someone, and you're like you and me meeting and then talking, you're brushing yourself up against another self, and then you're exchanging something. There's probably a sexual aspect even to these small dynamics, even though it's just two people talking. You know what I mean? But there's still something to it that you could equate to sexual on a cosmic sense, let's say. And
Yeah, yeah.
we have, you know, we have these strange. We may not feel the need to do it. We may not feel the desire to do it, and sometimes, though, maybe it benefits us to do it, depending what it is where I'm going with all this. And so, yeah, I've actually cultivated the desires for different things when I already felt like I got rid of them, only because I feel like, am I becoming just so boring to everyone? And am I missing out? I don't feel the enthusiasm for things that some people feel,
Yeah, yeah.
and maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I'm like putting
No,
my
no,
flame
you're
out is
doing
what I'm
something
saying. I
right.
thought in the time, maybe I'm putting out my fire because I don't seem. There was a time when if a beautiful woman could put me in a trance, almost,
Mhm.
to where like, wow, can't stop looking at this girl until make a fool of myself because I'm looking at her and I couldn't see anyone else in the room. There's people all around observing my behavior.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so those types of
Definitely.
things that I've done, I was like, geez, what was wrong with me that I couldn't control myself? I don't have any of that now. It's the opposite. I'm like, the magic is gone. What's wrong with me? You know?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what my
You're
kind of
bringing
my,
up
my
some
worry.
very
But we're at a different age. I know that you're pretty young in comparison. So I don't know how much of what I'm talking about is simply age, really.
No, no, it's not age. I look at it differently. I see what's happening is that your desires are um I'll put it in my own way of thinking. So what led me to that whole awakening in the first place was realizing that my desires will never be met in this world, no matter what I do. And there's something called a hedonic treadmill, and it's just this function of the human where once they reach a peak, that peak becomes normalized, where they need to get a new higher peak. And it's a treadmill of desire. You talk about people buying
Yeah.
things, so then they want to buy more expensive things until they own the whole world. And once they own the world, they'll realize I can't buy anything anymore, but I'm still not happy. That's the hedonic treadmill. It's you're chasing a carrot, but you there is no carrot, so you're chasing your own tail basically. And a level of maturity, I think, comes when you realize that's happening, and no matter what you do, you're not going to get the desire that you're seeking. And I think that's a prerequisite to have a real awakening. Because if you're still seeking the world, then you're still not ready to give up the illusion, right? You're still in the game, you're still playing the game, you're still thinking, if I just do this or do that, then that'll be fulfilling. But then when you realize nothing I do will ever fulfill me, then the desire has to come to a quietness. And when that desire finally ceases, I don't have a desire for anything because I know it's not going to give me what I'm seeking out of desire. That's when you can actually have a real awakening, because you've given up the hedonic treadmill and you're not satisfied with anything except what you're seeking. And what it is you're seeking is your own wholeness. And like the reason we're having this experience in this world is because an aspect of our own self is divided from itself to create a yearning towards fulfillment. Right? So people having desires is a part of that experience of reunion in a way, but they're trying to use the goad as the actual end prize when it's actually only a fuel. It's not the thing itself. It won't satiate your hunger. Nothing ever will. You're only ever going to be satiated when you're complete, when you've found your completeness, basically. And that's not going to be found in the things you do or desire. It's going to be found where you are. But we're not going to actually look there until we've exhausted everything out there. When we realize out there is not going to give me what I'm seeking. Right? So the fact that there are desires dying down and you're getting to a point where you're having to manufacture them, or there might be a point where you realize, hey, actually, I might be acknowledging something else, that these things aren't giving me the fulfillment. And so that would lead to a change in where you look for the answer, basically. How that relates to like sexuality is like, like I love I love sex, but I divorced in like 2018, and I haven't really pursued a relationship since then, because that divorce was a catalyst for me to make this realization that nothing I do is going to give me the fulfillment. The marriage certainly didn't, right? So like, why do I think another one's going to be the thing that solves all my problems? It's not, right? Nothing external to me is ever going to solve my problem of incompleteness. So that divorce was the catalyst for me to make this realization, but it took about 3 years after the divorce before I realized it. And during that time, I was completely immersed in my desires and completely immersed in trying to make money and trying to improve my outlook and all that. And that all led to me giving it all up once I realized that it wasn't the thing. It wasn't. It was a hedonic treadmill. Yeah.
I have a comment.
Sorry.
Just that I have a number of friends with divorce stories, and it occurs to me that if the divorce is a powerful force, changing force in life, then it has to be acknowledged that the marriage itself was the change, was the force, because the getting of the marriage and the marriage, and then the getting rid of the marriage, two sides of the same coin, right? This idea that marriage is bad, and we need to be single to do these things. Well, I don't know. My experience has been that definitely the marriage doesn't solve your problems at all. In fact, it brings you a lot more problems. It's a whole heap of problems and struggle and pain, and a lot more than you could get on your own. A lot more than you could
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
experience alone, And and
Hmm.
then when it's gone, let's say, yeah, there's going to be another wave of pain, of loneliness, let's say, But what a teaching tool! How
Yeah,
mythically
yeah,
they have it in myth where that the woman, like there was the idea from Gilgamesh or the Jungle Book where there's a girl and then you see there's a boy living out in the woods in a diaper.
yeah,
And whatever, he's living out in the woods with the animals and he sees this
yeah.
beautiful little girl and he follows her to civilization, and then he becomes civilized and he becomes dependent on civilization where he was independent and wild and he could do anything. Then he becomes dependent on civilization, and the hook and the lure that brought him in, it was the girl, it was the
Mm,
desire for the feminine, for and this teaching tool, um, once you get it, once you're hooked, the the lessons begin. A
mm.
lot of them are painful lessons. There's pleasure, which keeps you, the sex and the pleasure can keep you in
Yeah,
there, but then there's lessons. So if it wasn't for the pleasure, you'd never stay around for all those painful lessons. And then
exactly, exactly.
however many years you had of it or whatever, and then to be free of it, you probably had a very productive, I would say, no matter how bad it seems, no matter how bad it seems and how bad it may have hurt, because mine destroyed me. I was destroyed over and
Yeah,
over through marriage, through the relationship with a woman. And I didn't have those kind of feelings of destruction when I had casual engagements with women, only via that whole tethering part where, the Magi teaching is that we shouldn't do it. And yet they do it. They do it. Persian
yeah,
Magi is married, and he talks all the time about the uh, the fathers of the whole movement. They were married also, but they had
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
like practiced something like open marriages and
yeah.
temple prostitution and all these other things that you add into the mix for the religion type aspect. But still, I would say that my own personal opinion of marriage and is that it can, if it doesn't kill you, it should make you stronger depending how you perceive it later. In your case, it sounds like it has. Maybe you didn't think of
It
it
was
that way,
like
but I bet it
yeah,
has. Because how else
it
would
was the
you have
greatest
ended
thing.
up where you are?
Yeah, it was, it was the greatest. It was the very reason I had an awakening, and it could have been that one or it could have been another one, right? But the point wasn't that the marriage happened or the marriage failed. It was that I realized that no external thing could ever make me complete. And
Sure.
when I learned that, it didn't matter if it was money or women or whatever ideas I could think up, none of those things were going to bring me my fulfillment.
So it
And
didn't fail.
it's the
That's where I'm going. It did not
yeah,
fail. The
yeah,
idea that
exactly. It was
marriage fails, yeah, but it doesn't. If it transformed you and taught you, then it didn't fail. It did
it
its
didn't
exact
fail
purpose that
exactly.
it was actually
Yeah,
probably designed for, and that's why you were led to it and did
yeah.
it.
And if I could just like click my fingers and be married again, I would, just for the sake of having that alchemical partner accelerating lessons for me that are taking a lot longer for me to learn when I'm by myself, and
Mhm.
that's why I still smoke weed and do things that I could stop because they're at least acting as like an alchemical partner to teach me more things about myself. And
I
if
think
I
you're
could
pretty
make room,
accelerated. I think your learning is pretty accelerated, dude.
yeah. So
I
I
don't
don't
think
really
going back to
need to
marriage would
work for it
probably
anymore.
serve you at all, because
Yeah,
she would be the girl would be on a completely different wavelength, but so you'd have to
yeah.
change.
Well, that's what stops me from. That's why I'm not in a relationship. It's not that I don't have the desire. It's it's just that I don't. Uh, it's it's like I know I know my story is going to lead me where I need to go, and so when I have the desire to connect with a woman, I will do it. But like, I'm attracted to beauty, right?
Sure.
When I see women, I'm highly sexually magnetized to them. The problem is I don't have a mental structure that's creating a plan for that woman in my life.
Hmm.
Because that's what you need. If you're going to approach a woman with, you need to have some kind of objective that you're trying to reach with them to structure your interaction. Hey, I like you. I want to take you for a date, right? Because I don't have that process going on anymore. I just have the raw magnetism. I don't have any ambition towards doing anything with them. And so if I was to be with a woman again, it's going to happen magnetically. It's not going to happen mentally. And so we're talking about sexuality. The the reality of being fulfilled is a sexual experience in itself, right? So you're not really yearning for other people. You don't need other people anymore to create fulfillment. It doesn't mean you don't interact with people. It just means you don't need them anymore. So then your mind doesn't have to work towards trying to create that happening. Things just happen by themselves. You don't need to make them happen anymore, basically.
Well, the romance
And
that you
like,
talked about earlier, when it comes to your concept of God, let's say, and like the poetic, the poets like Rumi, and the eternal love affair with God or goddess, you know,
mhm.
that is, I find it to be quite beautiful. And I've seen her in the trees. I've seen her in the just in nature, but I found her communicating to me there in the trees for
Yep.
whatever reason. That's where it was for me. And I never thought I would see such a thing or have any kind of uh, inkling of anything like that. But that's what happened. And I didn't talk about it too much. I hinted about it a little, but I haven't talked about it too much just because it seems so unlikely. But yet, that's where either my delusion led me, or that's really what was there. That's how I feel about it. So I like the
Yeah, it's
idea
not
of
delusional.
this, of feeling it as a spiritual aspect,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm not quite sure what's the right thing when it comes to men like preserving themselves for or reserving themselves for God
Yeah. Yeah.
versus the
I've
physical.
got, yeah,
I don't know.
it's a favorite topic of mine, man. Because like, I've always like, ever since I was very, very young, I used to like masturbate like every day, basically, like since I was very young. And like, that stayed with me for pretty much most of my adult life. And so that was always like a point of learning for me after the awakening process, essentially. Because I learned a couple of things through it. One was that um, the ejaculation is optional because it's optional, you can actually experience the orgasm and all that without that. But old habits die hard, and so I would still do it after my awakening. And what I realized was I was sapping my own love energy, basically. So when you've retained for like a week, for example, you've got that sexual energy is circulating in the body quite strongly, and that when you're in a relationship with your environment, like you're looking at the trees, right, and they're communicating with you, that's a sexual act. And if you're doing that 24/7 in constant state of meditation, right, your sexual energy is circulating through you in a divine mutual correspondence, basically, and the world's speaking to you. It's fully sexual in that way. And when you unload the seed, basically, it's like the battery goes from 100% to 30%, and you still feel the love. It's just not as the pool's not as magnetic in it, basically. So that's the only reason I'd say, like, not to do that is just because you're kind of robbing your own capacity for moment to moment sexual experience.
Well,
But
have you
on the other
heard of the
side of that,
concept? Well, I'm sorry. Let me just ask you, have you
yeah,
heard
there
of
you go,
the
yeah,
concept
yeah.
of just retaining, but only allowing oneself the relief from this maybe once a month or something, or or even
Yeah.
longer, but setting limits.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah,
however it happens, whether it's actual sex or whatever method one uses.
that's kind of what happened for me. Like, I eventually, it used to be like every day, and then it was every week or every fortnight or something, right? But slowly the desire for that fades, just because the way I'm doing it is different now. It's gone from like a mental activity to a spirit activity, essentially. When it was a mental activity, I used to think about women, right? I used to think about the female form, and like you'd think about the actual sexual act or whatever. It
Mhm.
was like happening in the mind, and it translates to the physical pleasure. But say over the last like year, anytime I'm doing that kind of work, it's more of an energetic feeling instead, and it becomes bisexual or hermaphroditic, in the sense that you become the feminine force and the masculine force at the same time. So it's almost like you engage with the feminine, receptive, magnetic aspect, and you're almost like pulling the spiritual energy into you, like you're a black hole and you're like sucking it up. And then at the same time, you're the projective spirit that's going into that black hole. And so you have this like sexual act where you're the female and the male at the same time, basically. And you can't really visualize a female form while you're doing that, because you kind of you're going back into the mind instead of the feeling part of it.
Well, when
And
you do choose to release, let's say, um, there are techniques you can use mentally to sort of direct the energy to some degree to make it
yeah.
more than simple lust, to make it more along the
Oh
lines
yeah.
of
Yeah.
creation, something. The idea is this is a creative force that could be used to create a human being. If you're not going to be able to create a human being, you could use it to create something, a magical field or something, perhaps, is the idea. But definitely important to control the thoughts during the moment of orgasm, I think, to some
Well,
degree.
directing
Be,
them, directing
yeah,
them. Yeah.
direct. That's what I mean to say.
Yeah.
Like a dedication, as though it's an offering to God. To I see a
Exactly.
female, I see a feminine there, a divine feminine. So
Yeah.
I feel like I have a love affair with that divine feminine, and that's what that's what all the sex was about. That's why all the girls were about. That's what was happening there the whole time. And I've dreamed about her, and she wasn't even human. I don't know what she was, but it wasn't. She didn't look like a human at all,
Yeah.
um,
That's
or
definitely
sexy in the way that you'd think it looked.
no.
But whatever it is, whatever she is, um, sometimes I've seen her as a bird. You know, uh, I was a bird too in those dreams.
Yeah.
So that's what leads me to think that the trees and the birds and all these types of things have to do with the same sort of power, energy, or whatever that's out there that's like calling to us. And of course, I know the sun and the moon and all these other factors that are vital to our essence as well. But so, what do you think? Go ahead.
Yeah. Like you're talking about channeling or directing intentions, and that's actually exactly what changes. You go from lusting over the memory of a physical form or whatever into actually tapping into the spiritual essence of the process that's taking place, and like this seed or whatever is millions of souls, and so what could you do with the power of a million souls? And this is when my greatest ambitions end up coming to my consciousness during these sexual acts, or either when I'm in a sexual act or when I'm in bed right before I go to sleep. I'm the most intimate with the spirit. Like I can see it most clearly, and I talk to it as if it's my lover laying right beside me in my bed.
Cool.
Because yeah, and it's like you're surrounded by light. Like it's nighttime and you're surrounded by lights. It's something you can't imagine until you really see it. But
Hmm.
what is your great? So if you think about it, what is your greatest intention? If you could just state your greatest intention, what is your greatest ambition? What do you most desire more than anything, right? That's what comes up during my sexual act when I'm going through the process of expelling any seed. I think about what's my greatest ambition. Let's direct this towards that. So it might be I want humanity to have the awakening experience that will lead them to their seeing the spirit. I want the world to see the spirit. I want the spirit to become manifest so I can have people that understand each other without, like I want the spirit to manifest inside of me. I want to, I say to the spirit, I want to be you. I don't want to be this limited ego. I want to be you. And so my greatest ambition is to have that spirit manifest inside of me. So that's the kind of greatest ambition I put to the table. Like I can't think of anything greater to ask for than to give myself up so that like the spirit could be embodied in the physical form. Like that's my greatest ambition. So I use that kind of thing when I'm channeling or directing my sexual energy into something. I imagine these like sperm are literally like coming into me they are like the seed of the spirit, and they're giving
Mhm.
birth to like dandelion seeds, millions of dandelion seeds in my own soul, and they're going to grow into a fruit, you know, like that kind of thing.
Beautiful. It's a nice way to
I
look
think
at
it's
it.
like a powerful ambition to like have, is to think like, what is my greatest ambition? You know, what would you say your greatest ambition would be if you could have any desire that you wanted? What would you ask for?
I don't know. I don't have very many desires that I can really. I would probably ask for something from my loved ones to be able to achieve their dreams or to be happy and all those sorts of thoughts. I feel like I've got to wait to be told what I should want. I don't know what I'm supposed to want because I don't, other than just, I mean, I like to be in the presence of the people that I love, you know, that's something that I've asked for. That's something that I asked for and received. Um, so, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't answer that. What about you? Do you have a definite answer on that? Do you know what you want or what you desire? If you had something you
That's
could name?
yeah, just what I stated. Basically, it's trying to diminish what I'm not to enable what I am to be free.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um, yeah, just I'm not like a outward ascetic. I'm not ascetic in my outward life, but on my inner life, I am an ascetic because
Mm.
I'm willing to give up everything. And that means I don't have to give up everything, right? So just to be willing to do that is more important than the outward appearance. And
Yeah.
that's kind of why I keep these problems in my life in a way, because they serve a role for me. But inwardly, I'm willing to give up any of them any second if it means if it's what I need to do, you know, and it creates a level of flexibility of my desires. I don't desire anything except to remember what I know already to be true. What I All I desire is to remember what I am, because this whole fucking world is designed to make you forget what you are. So
Have
every
you
day you gotta like fucking go through the process of remembering who you are again.
have you ever been to the States?
No, I haven't. I've only been to a couple of Asian countries like Thailand or Philippines. I haven't really been anywhere else, but I'd love to go there.
Yeah, you should come over sometime. We'll go up to
Mm.
Sedona and tour around and the Grand Canyon and stuff that's around here. And there's so many really cool, chill people that are on the spiritual wavelength and beautiful women and just, some kind
Yeah,
of. I imagine if I was in that position, I would love that place. This is like a really cool hub for the energy fields or whatnot. You probably have really cool places like that where you're at, but just throwing out
I'm
the invitation.
creating that where I am. I'm creating
Yeah,
that place right now.
good. Good for you, man.
Yeah. Uh, it's like anywhere you go, you're creating that
There
place,
you
man.
are.
Like,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's true.
and you're underwater, so everything echoes. And yeah,
Hey, man, it's been great talking to you tonight. I think I'm going to have to get off, though. And maybe we can do
we
this
did
again
well.
soon if you're
Bloody
available.
oath, brother.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I look forward to it, man.
Okay. Yeah,
All right,
anytime.
I'll stop this recording.
Okay,
Uh,
my friend.
much love, everybody.
Have a good night. Thanks.